helmet, a helmet born from seashells. The shells are crushed into powder, turned into pellets, poured into a mold, and formed. A shell rib structure inspired by biomimicry achieves 133% strength compared to conventional products. After it has served its purpose, the shellmet will be crushed, reborn, and reused as a brand new shellmet. It is sold as a specialty item from Sarafutsu village. The helmets spread throughout Japan from local fishing communities. In 2025, Shellmet will be adopted as the official helmet for the Osaka Expo. This material is attracting attention as a new alternative to plastic.
So Ali, do you want to give us a brief overview of why you chose that work?
Absolutely. First of all, good morning, everybody. Thank you for making the first talk of the day. Hope everybody got their coffee shots going. Look, before I get into the work itself, I'd just like to talk a little bit about how the jury panel worked over the course of the 3 days that we judged. This is a very intense category because every single case that you see is dealing with some sort of an issue with the planet or with people. And it's very hard to keep that sort of emotional focus throughout the 3 days. There was a lot of really good work. Overall, we were looking for work that obviously had a very measurable impact, not only on a short-term basis on the objective it was trying to achieve, but also a longer-term basis. Some things that were very innovative or inspiring stood out for us. And also craft at the end of the day. So there were a lot of factors that went into picking the best work that did rise to the top. This particular project ticked all the boxes. It was a very, very well-designed product piece, and it solved a local problem, but it has global implications. The design itself, as you saw, I love the word biomimicry, that's my new favorite word. But the way they designed the helmet was absolutely stunning. I was mentioning in the jury room that I personally loved the poetry in this, that a shell is designed to protect whatever is inside it. And they took that and made it into a helmet to protect your head. And they made it look like a shell as well. Just the way the case film also explains how the project is circular in nature. You know, they take the shells, they design the helmet out of it. If you want to throw away the helmet, you don't throw it away. You recycle it, crush it down again, and make another helmet out of it. So it just keeps going in circles. The scale of it was pretty awesome. It generated commerce for the village where it was coming from, but also the application towards the 2025 games as well, just how far they took it. But I think from the lens of looking at a project that not only does good, but is well crafted, well thought out, just sort of ticks all the boxes. They thought everything through. This one stood out very, very easily for us.
Impactful. And now to Chloe's work.
1% da população tem autismo. Meu filho é deles. Minha maior luta é ajudar ele a se comunicar com o mundo. Com esse cartãozinho, ele aprende a fazer coisas básicas. Fazer xixi, beber água, ouvir músicas.
an AI platform based on the unique interests and passions that each child with autism hyper-focuses on, enabling the real-time creation of limitless personalized communication cards. Hyper-focus on movies, dinosaurs, animals, games, and infinitely more. The code was entirely rewritten to generate cards following the autism design convention. Blurred depth of field avoids sensory overload. Candy colors reduce distraction. Comic Sans typography for friendly design. For the first time, anyone can easily create their own personalized cards to use digitally or even printed.
A ideia do sistema é que se consiga entrar nessas motivações individuais. Isso é respeito, isso é inclusão.
No app needed. No complex prompts. The autism journey was introduced through an immersive experience, taking families to their kids' worlds.
Mas isso eu nunca tinha sentido, né?
Hoje eu entrei no mundo dele, né?
The initiative quickly became a conversation about using AI to improve human connections in a democratized, personal, and direct way.
Não, abraço não, mãe.
And Chloë, I'm riffing off one of Ali's words, which is emotional. Can you tell us, other than emotional, what resonated with this work?
Good morning, everyone. Is anyone else just like, when you see it like on a big screen, it just feels different? We've been sat in a room for the last 3 days, looking at this. The first time that we looked at it was on a computer screen. And I'm the new girl in the class. It was my first time being on jury, so I didn't really know what to expect. And yeah, it was intense and emotional, and you're getting to know everyone. We've all got different opinions, things that we feel passionate about or not. And, this body of work lives in my life. So I'm mum to 2 autistic children. So I was really honest in the room and said, I don't want to be biased because of where I come from. But what I loved about this body of work is that it made people who are most often voiceless, it truly gave them a voice in a modern day effect. And so we use PECs at home with my children. It's a very old system. It doesn't have any ability to have any individualization. And so I love that it brought a problem of our time and a conversation around AI into an everyday application that was then personalized through the lens of anyone who used it in a very simple way. Showing my age, once upon a time, kids used to swap cards, football cards. They still do it with Pokemon cards. They do it digitally and in person. So the idea that you could do this digitally, but also you could go old school and print and make it interactive and kind of see kids doing that in the playground and imagine that this is an application that my children will one day be able to use that will allow them to also have a voice, and for autistic adults and so on and so forth, and in different languages. I loved the innovation of something that is so often unseen. How do we communicate in a way that actually was undeniable and universal? So yeah, for me this was, and there was so much work that was like this, but I guess on a very personal lens, I saw the possibility and the opportunity of how much further this could go, and I think this is why this is one of my favorites.
Yeah, really impactful. And now to Paco's work.
Renault, the leader in electric vehicles in France, is facing a business problem. There are already 1 million electric cars on the streets of France, but only 80,000 public charging stations, and very few located in rural areas. It's a real barrier to the electric transition. At a time where the world is facing huge ecological problems.
The European Parliament has given the green light to a plan to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel cars from 2035.
Le problème des voitures électriques, c'est bien évidemment l'accès à la charge. Il n'y a pas assez de bornes.
Mais le problème, il n'y a pas de bornes.
Les infrastructures suivent pas.
Renault presents Plug-in, the Airbnb for plugs.
Plug-in, c'est une application de mise en relation des conducteurs de voitures électriques avec les propriétaires de recharge.
A solution so people can charge here, here, or here. Because people like Mathieu, Nadège, or Gilbert have their own home charger, and there are 680,000 more in France. With Plug-in, drivers can plan their trip, find available home chargers, book them in advance, and charge at a reasonable price. While charger owners can turn their electricity into money with a secure transaction system on the app. And this is everywhere in France, even in remote places like this. This is how we transformed a business problem into a new business model. With Plug-in, we created the fastest growing recharging network for all brands, and soon for all countries, proving that electric cars can go everywhere, while confirming Renault as the leader of the electric transition.
C'est Renault qui lance ça s'appelle Plug-in.
Plug-in qui est gratuite. Une application créée par Renault.
So now, when people ask where the nearest charging station is, the answer is everywhere.
Good morning, buenos dias. I remember judging online when you are watching, I don't remember how many entries, a lot, and this stood out instantly, right? The first reaction was, whoa, this is smart. The second is, it's stuck in your head. I always say that if you need more than a line to explain your idea, it's because you don't have an idea. And the line of Airbnb for plugs is something that just that line is, wow, this is really, really smart. And I think we've been judging Impact as part of the council for a few years. And you can see how the category is getting more mature, right? I think we started with more like a stand PR ideas, and then we are getting in like a very interesting space. I think it was very difficult for us to pick just one because there are so many great work. Actually, I could, I can choose any of the other ideas that you selected. I chose this one because I think it's what creativity is about. It's about solving problems, solving business problems. But doesn't just solve a business problem. It helps to all of us to the transition to EV, which is quite important, the way we transport and move around. And it's a win-win-win-win situation. Everybody wins, right? You have the brand winning, you have the drivers, you have the communities and the villages, right? And I really like as a side effect this idea of discovering, exploring small villages around the country. And also when we were discussing the different candidates for pencils and Davies, one of the things that I always try to make very, very clear is, hey, you need to solve a problem, and a specific issue here is very clear, right? You have the barrier of not going EV because the lack of chargers for everyone. Then you have something that is an insight, something that you can leverage. And this idea, we couldn't have come up with it like a few years ago without Airbnb or Uber, etc. So you are leveraging something that I always say, to change something, don't change anything. Don't pretend, don't ask people to do something. People are not out there waiting for our ideas to stop everything they are doing and embrace what we are doing. You just need to use something that they are doing already. So the applications for like sharing your home, your car, etc. there. So you are leveraging that. And then the results and the scale of the idea, you can scale this everywhere. And there is one more point which is quite interesting and generous, and I think is about Renault opening for other brands. It's not just your own brand, it's good for everyone, for the whole category. It's an idea that really changed the category, and it's an idea that there is a before and after the idea in a way that, anywhere in any country, you can implement it and you can solve the biggest barrier for people to go to buy EVs.
A very different kind of innovation, which is we'll get talking about, and that Priya's work.
Ambient air pollution causes over 3 million premature deaths worldwide every year and is considered the greatest environmental risk to health. Maving's aim is to combat urban air pollution by promoting electric commuting to as wide a market as possible. Maving identified that in urban areas, people don't buy electric bikes due to range anxiety and their undesirable electric look and feel that does not warrant the price tag. The RM1 took design cues from classic UK heritage motorbikes and even positioned themselves in the heart of the UK motorbike manufacturing industry based in Coventry. The Maving RM1 includes a battery system allowing for 1 or 2 batteries. These can be removed for charging at your discretion and thereby removing range anxiety. To extend range even further, the bike is designed to be as light as possible, weighing in at between 111 and 123 kilograms with the 2 batteries. It can deliver a range from 40 to 80 miles and has a trimmed top speed of just 45 miles an hour. All of this costing under £5,000. As the main aim is to reduce air pollution, an urban carbon emissions study was commissioned and found that the RM1 has the lowest carbon footprint when compared to other urban commuter travel, such as public transport or other personal vehicles. Following great reviews, customer trials, and increased sales, distribution opened up in Germany and France, and in December of last year in California. Maving's aim was to introduce the bike to as wide a market as possible, and they are on target to achieving that goal. Over 60% of sales are first-time motorbike users, indicating Maving's success in shifting behaviour and pioneering growth in the two-wheel electric commuter market.
Priya, can you talk us through this work?
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. So great that you guys made it in. Just show of hands, how many of you have driven an electric bike or electric anything? Okay, great. So it's just not me. Again, going back to the excellent comments here, a lot of this also comes, I'm a cyclist in London, and one of the things I find quite challenging are those electric bikes. They're quite like heavy and difficult to maneuver. And looking at this, seeing that it's coming from Coventry, coming from UK with fantastic industrial design and product design, it gives me hope, going back to Ali's point of poetry, Paco's point of business model innovation, and then going to Chloe's point of really appealing emotionally to something that you go through every day. I just want to build upon that and think that this kind of innovation, it doesn't require somebody like Elon Musk to be able to do this. This comes from right here in the UK. If you look at the bill of materials, it's under £5,000. If you look at the design, what do you guys think? Great? Amazing, isn't it? Makes you feel really proud that we're bringing manufacturing back to Coventry, which used to be traditionally one of the strongholds in the UK. So this entry actually gave me a lot of hope of how we can take a category, first-time users who have never ridden a bike are actually even becoming like first-time users of electric bikes. It creates behavior change purely through desirability. Forget the feasibility and viability for a minute. It's a classic 3 circles. So I remember there was a really funny interview with P. Diddy. And somebody asked P. Diddy, so P. Diddy, how would you prevent car deaths or car accidents? Or what do you do with like seat belts? And he looked at the interviewer and said, you know what I'd do? I'd bling the shit out of it. And I love that response, I'm blinging the shit out of a car seatbelt and making it desirable so you want to look like you're wearing a car seatbelt. What I love about this, and also another project which is the Shellmet, is the desirability and of the product itself. It trumps everything. Besides the fact it's great for the planet, it's fantastic, it's viable, and this is exactly what this category is trying to do. Previously, like Ali mentioned, impact has always been about, yes, we've taken social issues, we have taken, people, planet, profit, but I think this category has moved on into a very interesting nuance where it's making business as usual happen and create real innovation for the industry. So that's what excites me about this.
That's great. I mean, this is the first time I'm seeing all of these projects. So as, a bit like you, Chloe, it's the first time coming to it. And it seems like there's very different innovations, from materiality to business to kind of emotional. And some themes that came out was, the emotional response, the poetry, the people, the planet. I guess my question is, what are the major themes that you saw coming out of this year's work? Riffing off these things, and maybe Chloe, I'll send it to you first because this is the first time you've been judging.
I think first time judging in this space, but in a social impact space for a number of years. So, I mean, the one thing that I said actually yesterday is what I've loved about This particular awards in particular is that we have moved the needle from purpose to really defining what impact is, and impact being across everything. So with I think we almost had 500 bodies of work.
Yeah.
I think if I saw the same body of work twice, I don't actually think that happened. We had work that was dynamically different from one entry to another. It was a different part of a story, whether that was rooted in innovation or product, whether it was directly to the SDG goals, or whether you were trying to solve a societal community problem. I think what the theme that resonated with me most was how global this truly was. Like, there was how much local innovation to really make change on the ground, and where I guess the intersection between big brand and that local voice had come together to try and do that good. I really started to see that shift. So for me, that was a really great thing to see, that, you know, to Priya's last point, you can do good and make money for your business at the same time, and that not be crass, like it actually be impactful, not purpose with a sticker.
Yeah, and I guess that goes to Paco's, the project that you were highlighting, the local impacting the global, and it being business as well. Is that one of the major themes that you saw, Paco, or was there other ones that kind of came off the back of that?
It's, I think our creativity has the power to change the world, and where ideas can be bigger than just a campaign or an ad. You can have a business idea. This Renault app is a business idea. And there is something that you mentioned, and Chloë, I think you mentioned during we were voting, is the idea of hope, right? Watching the work. I went to the side-by-side ways a few months ago. It was my first time there, and I had the same feeling, was hope. You know, we are in good hands. There are a lot of very smart and creative people working to come up with great solutions for some of the biggest problems we are facing. And that's with creativity. Creativity is humanity's superpower. And I'm very, very happy that people out there or here, like you, are using your own creativity to really, really provoke positive change or positive impact.
And Priya, do you have hope other than, now knowing which bike you're going to get next for your electric bike? But did you feel that hope was coming out of the entries as well?
Absolutely. I think what makes me really happy this year specifically, like having also been judging previous years, is seeing things which you desire, you want to touch and feel. And I still remember fighting over the Shelmet with Ali and others, because I kept wanting to pet it, because it had this really nice anthropomorphic, rich feel. And I don't know how many of you have forgotten your helmet somewhere in a pub or a coffee shop and not remember. But what I loved about the design is it makes you want to have it just for the beauty itself. And I think for me that's quite a selfish thing, because this category is always fought. It's a bit like eating kale. It's impact, it has to solve these problems and it has to do good. It's a bit like Mother Teresa situation. And I like sexy, I like cool. And I don't see why I have to compromise on that just because we're doing good. So this category this time for me kicked ass.
Yeah.
She's a designer, if you haven't noticed yet.
All of the name checks as well. Maria, Mother Teresa, Elon, name dropping.
And early in the morning.
And what about you, Ali? Was there any significant themes that you felt like you saw this year compared to previous years?
Yes. So two things. One thing I'll take forward from what Priya said, that it's the reason why we're choosing to do good or design good. So at one point it came at a compromise. Fine, I'm going to choose the better option for the planet or for people, but that meant that I might not pick something that is stylish or cool. We talked about the helmet in the room, and we talked about even the cost that it was being sold at, and it was comparative. So when I'm choosing a helmet now for my bike, I don't have a reason to not select this. It's good for the planet, it's good for the people, it's a great price, and it looks bloody cool. So this doesn't apply to the products we're designing as well. This applies to business also, at a time when business choosing to do the right thing came at a compromise for something else. There's enough data now that suggests that choosing to do the right thing is going to be good for your business. We had lots of examples of that, and we saw that theme throughout. The case that Paco picked is a brilliant creative solution that sort of completes that loop. It's brilliant to get people onto e-vehicles, but it does it in a very intelligent, creative manner. The second thing I want to touch upon is authenticity. I think we've moved forward a lot from when doing purpose was for greenwashing something or for just the optics of it. You're going to get caught out now. And we scrutinized everything quite a lot. We spent a lot of time going into, I mean, the Shelmet, we went into the website to just see how people would order it. So for anybody who's putting an entry together, just make sure you complete that research. But just from a macro scale, I think for brands, for companies, for anybody doing good, there has to be that authenticity at its core. You have to mean it. We didn't touch upon it yet, and I hope we do. Sustainable impact is a category that came out of the impact category. And there were lots of discussions about what it means to have sustained impact. It's not just the results that are being generated. It's having skin in the game. It's saying as a person, as a brand, as a designer, I'm going to continue to do this, and I'm going to do it with authenticity at its heart, and I'm going to mean this to do well, and it will do well in the long run. We saw lots of really, really good examples of that. So those are the two things I would pick as trends.
And going back to Priya and your point with Shelmet, with touch and this idea of craft, we're seeing obviously the evolution of AI and what's happening there. With you guys that have judged before and with all the social impact judging you've done in the past, do you see the benefits, or maybe not the benefits, of AI infiltrating the entries this year and its kind of duality with craft or how it works with craft? Did you notice anything in particular? Maybe taking it to you, Chloe.
I guess this is like the reality, right? It's not an infiltration. It's here. It's not going to go away. I think it's about how you integrate and really think about how it can come into your business and beneficials. As we saw with my autism journey, it's given something that is not available to my child an ability into other children. So the innovation in a product that doesn't have a guideline anywhere else. And I think that's the difference. Here it had a very clear guideline. It has very clear parameters. I think when we think about the evolution of anything, it needs guidance. So I don't think this is a non-traditional AI. I think this is, as we evolve, how do we do that correctly with guidance? And for me, that's really, really powerful. I think that across all the work, people they really thought about, how does this evolve? How does this become bigger than, I'm not just jumping onto a fad, and also I'm not going to be irresponsible with it either. I'm really going to think about it and the implication and the impact, coming back to the impact part. So I don't think we could penalize for AI or not. I think it's about the people's intention when they did use it. Did we use it transparently and responsibly, and did it have an impact?
It's that idea of sustained impact, which
it's that part for me. That was really interesting, because everybody's talking about it regardless. So if you don't think about how you can adapt, then you will lose skin in the game. So yeah, I think and nobody's going to get it right. It takes practice. Everything takes practice. So the fact that people did, and the way that they did it, that was for me really inspiring.
And Paco, I guess with the project that you highlighted, technological advances is the heart of it. So did you notice that across the board and how that worked with the kind of craft element of projects and so on?
Yeah, well, technology, AI, all this is more tools for us, right? It's give us more superpowers to create and go beyond that we could even expect it, right? So I think it's, as you say, a responsibility of how you use everything you have in your hand, right? And this is something that also, one of the things that we were discussing, especially on sustained, and I think product technology and all these new tools that we have, is the commitment. you need to be committed, right? This is not just a trend, right? Especially with brands, when, some years ago, they picked causes as they used to pick celebrities. Okay, this cause is good for my brand, so I'm going to pick it now. And especially, I think we were very excited about judging for the first time sustained impact, because we were setting up more or less, the criteria and commitment of brands and organizations and startups that commit to something for a long term is something that we need to recognize. And AI technology and all the tools we have can help us to achieve that commitment.
And Priya, Paco saying that this can be a superpower. Was there any, contention within the room of judging that maybe this isn't a superpower and maybe, it's not for good and so on and so forth? But did you see that much in judging that there was any contention between opinions?
I think I was really lucky to have an amazing jury from whom I learned a lot, because working in technology, one definitely gets biased as well. So it's really nice to be kept honest. Just coming to the AI part, again, for me, like Paco mentioned already, it's just another tool. It's not like you don't sit and get out of bed in the morning saying, oh, wow, I'm going to work with this amazing hammer. If you love your hammer, brilliant. It's just another thing. It's more about the idea and the creativity which is manifesting. But I think just reflecting, and I'm going to talk a bit about this later, is what I find from the entries is the entries that stood out actually had a why, an idea, and AI was just another way to get to the data, get to some insights, to really kind of in service of the why. And I feel that becomes more and more stronger, that if you're using AI for your ideations like another team member, but it's not that you're going to get amazingly new ideas because it's all trained data, it's regurgitation, a bit like Victorian baths where you're taking bath in the same water. It's like a reflection of whatever you're feeding it. So it ultimately comes down to the kind of, creativity, the ideas, your design team, the people you're surrounding with, and having this access and intelligence as yet another member of your team or tools, because the idea is really important.
And Ali, for you, is it the why as well, about why they're using the technology to get to the decision and within the landscape of AI?
Yeah, just going through all the entries, there was I felt a lot of hope that the solutions were very genuine human, emotional solutions, right? I mean, most of these problems are caused by humans as well. There was a breadth of work that some of it had the AI component built into it. Some of it had very low-tech solutions, so that's also working. I want to talk about one entry. We didn't cover it here, but there was one entry in particular that used a very low-tech postcard mailing idea to fix a problem in AI. And this was about the bound loop. So this was about a problem that a city was facing in terms of its image. Every time you prompted Midjourney to come up with images of that city, Midjourney would give a very negative image of that particular suburb. And so people wanted to change that, and in order to do that, they used postcards to mail to the CEO of Midjourney. And we felt there was a very interesting thing there that, okay, we've got this modern technology, but it's still taking low-tech solutions to fix it. But I think I agree with Paco. This is going to be just another tool that's only going to make it easier for us to get to more solutions. But those solutions have to come from that really emotional place at the end of the day, that human place, for sure.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of it's coming back to the emotional. That's one word that I've seen kind of covered across. I have one more question for you all, but I would love to send it to the audience. If anyone has any burning questions for these experts, please raise your hand. And we have someone with a microphone in the audience, so we'll be able to hear you. Don't be shy. I know they're very intimidating. Okay, I'll give it a couple of moments. Maybe they need to be warmed up. But my question, and I guess it comes from, I don't necessarily come from the world of campaigns and advertising. I'm quite design in terms of product and working with designers and graphics and so on. But I guess my question would be, what would be one piece of advice for young talent out there to create a piece of work for impact? What would be your one piece of advice? Let's start with you, Ali.
One piece of advice, I think, if you truly want to do the greatest work you would be doing, pick a cause that you're really close to, or is very close to your heart, or you're really, again, the authenticity factor of you really want to get in there to solve. You'll notice that a lot of the successful work, the people that get behind it, it means something to them beyond just the fact that they want that to be a successful solution to the problem that they're solving. We noticed this in a lot of the cases of where jury members sometimes spoke up about a cause that they were close to. It's human emotion. It impacts the way you view things, and it also impacts the way you come up with things. I'll give you an example. I work in the Middle East, and I work with a lot of people from Lebanon, and for them, what the country is going through is something very close to their hearts. And year after year, we produce work for a local newspaper, which does really, really well, but it comes from a very, very deep place. They truly, I mentioned skin in the game as well. It comes from a very authentic, loving place, and that, I think, impacts the work. So the one piece of advice I'd give you is that just pick something that you hold very dear, and if it's a problem, then you'll see the solution becomes much more meaningful.
And Chloe, what's one piece of advice you would?
There's an organisation here in the UK, it's called Word on the Curb, and their mantra is diversity is a reality, inclusion is a choice. And I think about impact, and that's why I said earlier when I said the cross between purpose and impact, and I think we've all talked about it on the panel. This is a human thing. If it comes from a human place, then everything you do is impactful. So I don't think it's about giving advice to what to do to come into the category. It's about giving you advice to make the kind of work that means something, that is human, that is inclusive of people, that tells a story, and make sure that you do it true. And whatever you create from there is impactful, will always be something that you can bring to this space because you built it through a human lens. That for me is what I hope to future-proof to the next generation, but I think also to remind ourselves as an industry, as advertisers and marketers, that's also our own story.
And Paco, what about you?
Something similar what Ali said. For me, it's make it personal. I mean, I'm Spanish. I'm very passionate and always loving things, but also hating. I use a lot sometimes the word hate. Sometimes I try to hold myself. But no, I mean, hate, rage, all these feelings is used to motivate yourself to change things, right? And another thing is there is no excuse. We are talking here about amazing cases, that is technology, AI, etc. You don't need $1 or £1 to do great work, to use your creativity. There was one case study, one idea from Colombia, which is a tiny sticker that you put on the fruit and tells you what you can do with the fruit depending on how it is, if it's more green or more mature, etc., fresh or not. So it's a tiny sticker that has the power to behavior change. My point with that example is, again, no excuse. Creativity thinking is for free. You don't need money, you don't need resources. Find something that you are passionate about, something that you love or something that you hate, and use your creativity to change it.
About you, Priya?
Yeah, building upon what Ali, Chloe, and Paco said, make it personal, make it mean something, take something that you're passionate about. I think sometimes as designers, we are quite anxious about everything that's happening in the world. We feel a lot of responsibility, and that might bog us down. And sometimes designing might feel quite heavy. And that's when I think when I meet young people and I see designers and they talk about climate change, you're talking about, inequality, you're talking about identity. There are so many topics which are quite heavy topics. And I think then we forget to give ourselves permission to play. And I think my advice would be never forget that ultimately you have to give yourself permission to be playful. All of these things cannot be solved and cannot feel really have a have kind of a core meaning unless you have enjoyed the process yourself as designers, engaged and had a conversation and continue to have a conversation. So I would just say, give yourself permission to keep it light, be playful, and make a lot of mistakes, because you can make mistakes. Just because you're solving a big problem doesn't mean you have to get it absolutely right the first time. We're all hacking stuff. We're all making shit up as we go along. None of us have the right answers. So I would just say, be kind to yourself and give yourself permission to play more.
And any more questions from the audience? Oh, we do have a question. Great. We just needed to say the word shit and everyone got that.
Hi, I've got a question about the ethics of AI, I guess, and the beautiful case that Chloë highlighted, the autism journey, I think kind of exemplifies a bit of that, because you see AI being used for incredible good. Then you also think about kind of the appropriation of intellectual property within that, right? So I mean, when you look at that case, you think, okay, so it's taking essentially famous copyrighted characters, whatever, putting them into a really useful, really beautiful place that unlocks huge possibilities. I mean, how do we feel about, we're still working out, navigating the kind of ethics of AI. So I just wanted to know if you had that kind of discussion around that.
Maybe since highlighting Chloe's work,
we absolutely talked about it in the room, and I think in anything it's about how you build with the collaboration. It's the idea and then the implication. I think that there are, like Ali said, the body of work that he talked about before was also a mistake that had been made by AI that had been then corrected through this body of work. So I think it goes both ways. The ethics part is in the checking, but also in the collaboration and the talking and the expanding. It's the brands working together to kind of correct that. I'm going to flip this for a little bit, because I don't think that this is also an ethics issue with AI. When you think about the world and the ethical context that we live in, of the people that are supposed to do the right thing and a good thing and don't always do that, I think this problem happens wherever. I think it's about building a model where we can actually identify and make sure we're correct in intellectual property and how it's enforced. And I think in the premise of this idea, how they then work with those particular brands who see the good in this model and back it and endorse it and collaborate, rather than try to destroy because of a body of work and an image. I think the ethical context, we could go and be here for an hour, but it's a real life context as much as it's an AI context. So I think it just all desires conversation.
It's a really good point, though, and I just want to touch upon it a little bit. And I'll go back to what Paco was saying earlier about how this is a tool, just like any other design tool that we use. We use stock imagery as well, and the same rules apply there. So I think it has to be done at the best of your judgment. It also, you can use AI depending on the data you're putting into it. You can control that a lot as well, and that could be the basis of an idea that you create, of how you're controlling the input of that data into AI and what it can then generate. So I think you're right. It's something that we're still figuring out as we go along. But there's also a lot that we already know in terms of the output will depend on that input. So whatever you're trying to source from it will depend a lot on how you ask things from it. The same Lebanese newspaper I mentioned, we just built. It was a small idea, and we just built. We inputted the data of 90 years of journalism into AI very deliberately to output what we called was the president of the country. They didn't have a president for the last 2 years, so we said, why don't you use AI? And the cabinet, the government is actually using it. And that to me is the perfect example of we controlled the input, we knew what we were going to submit into this machine, and therefore we knew what it would output from the other end. So it's I think that also gives you a lot of control on how you use this tool itself.
Any other thoughts on the ethics?
I think AI and technology, I really like to use it in a way that make humans more humans. It gives you more knowledge, but also it can make you, do more good and make us be more,
make you feel that hate and love even
It's
more.
multiply the hate, that's and the love. No, but yeah, it's another tool. But I really like those people who use AI to make us more human. It's something nice.
Priya, any final thoughts about
I was just curious, again in the audience, it's early morning, so why not? How many of you guys have used any AI-based tool for day-to-day work? Can I have a show of hands? Okay, brilliant. There we go. So it is now part of our everyday experience. And I guess like a pen, paper, anything else, it's what we decide to do with it. It's become part of the behavior. It's more about whether you have something interesting to say and do with it. I'm not going to blame the pen, pencil, or the blank sheet of paper. It's what we bring to it. And talking about ethics, one thing I feel, having moved to different places, I'm working right now out of New York as well, and one thing I noticed difference between working in different cities, also I'm originally from Mumbai, is I find that we tend to, in Europe, get quite bogged down with ethics, not saying it's not important, but we can go beyond policy innovation and be a bit more playful and experimental, because sometimes it's a difference between being a chef in the kitchen and being a restaurant critique. And I think we are excellent restaurant critiques sometimes in our industry over here, but we're not enough of being a chef. And I think now is the time to be a chef and get the hands dirty. And through getting your hands dirty, we can decide what kind of ethics we want to have a play. But before you get your hands dirty, it's a bit of stopping yourself from actually seeing what the power is.
Well, I think that's a great way to end. Get ready to be the chef. Get your hands dirty, for sure. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. I think that was a very powerful start to the day.